Two of Destiny Church's charities will be deregistered next week if they don't file their 2016 and 2017 financial returns. The charities are on their final warning after ignoring 2 years of reminders and extensions. But while the church refuses to publish its finances, Destiny School went to the Kids Can charity asking for help to feed some of its students. And as Zach Fleming discovered, while the church was asking for charitable help, its founders Brian and Hannah Tamaki purchased a new Mercedes-Benz and moved into a new luxury home.
Beautifully laid out to separate the sleeping quarters.
This is the Tamaki's new home in Drury. 234 square metres. The real estate agent who sold it to them described it as having resort-like facilities. It has a spa and a heated pool.
The perfect party venue.
And the Tamakis are doing extensive redevelopment work on it. But interestingly, it's in their granddaughter's name. Bought in June for $1.6 million, the home is jointly owned by the Tamaki's lawyers and Eden O'Connor, also known as Eden Tamaki. She's just 22 years old. Brian and Hannah Tamaki live there though. They frequently post on social media about their livestock and renovations. But legally, they're not connected to the home at all. I rang the doorbell several times. Nobody answered, but both the couple's Mercedes-Benz cars, with a combined value of more than $200,000, were parked up. And I could hear talking. Excuse me, Brian. Brian, hi, my name's Zach Fleming. I'm a reporter at Radio New Zealand. I was just wondering if I could ask you guys a couple of questions.
No, you can just go off our property, please.
That's Hannah Tamaki. I left when she asked. She later posted this video to Facebook.
Somebody invaded my property a little while ago and they got telling off.
Radio New Zealand.
Radio New Zealand. They came in here, into our property, and all but demanded an interview, so they got the heave-hos.
I wanted to ask about Destiny School. Checkpoint revealed last month it applied to Kids Can for support. It's since withdrawn that request, saying it doesn't believe it'll be treated impartially. I wanted to ask about the church's financial situation. Destiny International and Te Hāhi o Ngā Matamua Holdings are so overdue with their financial returns, they have 2 weeks to file, or else the charities will be deregistered. And I wanted to ask about the Tamaki's obvious private wealth, which angers a lot of people because Destiny Church and its charities, which number at least 13, are tax exempt. But the Tamakis have refused every invitation to be interviewed. They instead post repeatedly on Facebook and Twitter about media coverage of these issues, labelling it fake news and a hate-inspired agenda. But Brian Tamaki earlier this month gave a rare insight into what he really thinks, especially about the frequent criticisms of his overt displays of wealth.
They are incredibly jealous about my life. They wanted a party here.
He delivered a sermon in Christchurch. The exact location was a well-kept secret.
You really got nothing until people get jealous around you. Jealousy is a part of the promotion of God.
The sermon was moved because gay rights activists said they'd crash it in protest at Mr. Tamaki's comments last year that homosexuality was to blame for the Christchurch earthquakes.
They were actively involved in homosexual practice, homosexual priests. The earth can speak. Leviticus says that the earth convulses under the weight of certain human sin. Fast forward back to his sermon earlier this month. If you had all the blessing you need, why would you be jealous of mine? That's right. And if you were doing well in God, why would you be jealous of me? That's right.
In other words, you're not fully blessed by God until you're as rich as Brian Tamaki. Envy is a cardinal sin, but Mr. Tamaki believes we should aim for riches to inspire jealousy. Because remember,
you really got nothing until people get jealous around you.
And the media is simply picking on him, he says, because they have nothing better to do.
Surely there must be better news things than about picking on this half-caste Māori. The car he drives, and about what I'm creaming you fellas for money. And if they say I'm so rich and you're so poor, how do the two things happen? They say come on, no, you fellas didn't give like, I don't think anybody gave a $100 note in the end tonight.
4 people did. It's not clear how many total were attending.
I ain't going to get rich on that. I'm not going to get rich on that. I didn't come in to get rich on you. You fellas gave nothing hardly tonight. And I was expecting that. When you start, when you lot come with thousands of dollars to give, then maybe it's different.
Very true.
But then that should be normal.
Yeah.
Because if you're giving thousands, that means you've got a lot of money.
Brian Tamaki wants Destiny Church members to strive for material wealth. Perhaps live a life like his, overseas holidays, luxury cars, multi-million-dollar homes. But is wealth a Christian virtue? The Tamakis won't comment, so I went to another branch of the Christian church.
Well, actually the Bible has a lot to say about people being rich, and it's usually pretty negative.
Helen Jacoby is the vicar of St Matthew's in Auckland's CBD.
Jesus famously said it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich person to enter the kingdom of God.
Matthew 19:24. 1 Timothy 6:10 says the love of money is the root of all evil.
Jesus says many times you need to let go of your wealth and your possessions in order to be close to God.
And if someone didn't take that advice?
He says that they won't be in the kingdom of God or the kingdom of heaven. We don't talk so much about heaven and hell these days, but there are some pretty graphic descriptions of what might happen to someone if they didn't let go of that wealth. We don't take that so much literally, but it is certainly an encouragement and a challenge in the way that we deal with wealth, yes.
But just how rich are the Tamakis and their charities? Destiny Church's income primarily comes from donations. Members are encouraged to give 10% of their income. And at big events, cash, sometimes upwards of $20,000, is laid out on stage for everyone to see. In the 2016 financial year, Destiny's Auckland arm alone pulled in $4.4 million in donations. It's not known how much of that went into the Tamakis' pockets, but 6 unnamed key management personnel were paid nearly $600,000 in total.
Well, that is a good question.
That's Sue Barker, an expert in charities law, after I asked her whether accruing personal wealth through a charity could potentially be breaking the law.
The principle of charity is that funds raised must be used to further the charitable purposes, and generally that is inconsistent with the accumulation of private wealth.
So basically it's a grey area. I then asked Miss Barker to look at Destiny's recent financial returns.
There are a lot of separate entities within the whole entity that we would think of as Destiny Church.
At least 13 separate charities.
So I think really the thing that struck me the most from these financial statements is that you don't get a sense of the whole entity that is Destiny Group.
And that sense of Destiny Church's finances as a whole is something that's not been understood by people outside the church, because the rules around financial reporting used to be a lot more relaxed.
Prior to these rules, charities were often filing bank statements or handwritten financial or written calculations. There was no standard of reporting required to be met.
Then, in 2015, the rules changed drastically. Big charities now have to file detailed returns, similar to what's required for a business. But the 2 Destiny charities that are facing deregistration have never filed a return under the new rules. 1,920 organisations became a charity since the start of 2016. That's 3 a day. Ms Barker says that a review of the Charities Act is desperately needed.
The Charities Act, when it was originally passed, it was rushed through under urgency without proper consultation, and we have been waiting ever since for a first principles review of the Charities Act to be undertaken.
The National Party promised one, but reneged on that promise.
Would allow us an opportunity to look at whether the balance is in the right place and you know, whether the financial reporting rules are working as they should, whether the whole regime is working as it should. And I really think that we need to have that undertaken.
If the 2 Destiny charities facing deregistration do file by their November 3rd deadline, we may finally have a sense of how wealthy the church really is. But with the Tamakis placing assets in other people's names, we may likely never know how wealthy its founders have become. For Checkpoint, Zach Fleming.